And we're back here on the GioMoShow, your home for Oakland Sports Beyond on WXOU. Here comes the Oakland sports part of our show. We're going to talk about women's basketball in their previous season and some of the changes that we could be expecting to see in this upcoming season. So we're going to give them a bit of a glance in terms of the season they played. And this was a season, us at WXOU, we put a lot of resources into covering women's basketball, obviously because it's one of our biggest ticket items. We're going to do that. So naturally, yours truly was on the call for some of these games during this season. But to kind of look at it from a high level, what was their final record and that kind of stuff. So Oakland finished, I believe, 9th place in the Horizon League standings going into the Horizon League tournament. Didn't win a game moving up into their losing to Northern Kentucky in the opening rounds. They finished the season 12-17 overall and 8-12 in conference. But I do want to say that like the 8-12 record, it was very congested for about that middle part of the Horizon League standings. It was all within about 2 games between, I believe, 3rd to 9th place. So unfortunate that Oakland wasn't able to get that kind of 1 or 2 game edge to get them a great bump in the standings going into the Horizon League tournament. But that was not the case. Kind of breezing through the season and started things off with a double overtime win at Akron, Ohio, and then 2 losses in the Big Ten to both MSU and U of M. And then we bring it back to the arena with a couple of NAIA, a couple of WAC teams coming into the arena kind of as friends of the program. I got to cover some of those games, not only on the radio, but on TV as well. For the Cleary game, I was on the sideline reporting of it. And I didn't know why we were playing Cleary University or Madonna University. And I learned that there was a bit of a prior relationship between the athletic director, at least of Cleary, and Jeff Tungate, head coach of the Golden Grizzlies. So it was kind of, Cleary's first season for women's basketball in the WAC conference. It was just kind of a way for Oakland to kind of give them a bigger platform and kind of give them some games on the roster and kind of help out some friends in the business. So that was mostly why we played a couple of the WAC teams in the beginning of the home part of the season, and to kind of give you the scores and kind of the sense of the game. It was 110-51 against Cleary, in which Tungate told me that 51 points was way too much to give up for such a defensive-minded team. And then against Madonna, it was 122-38. So not the best games, and it's something that kind of carry out throughout the season. That you look at some of the scoring stats and you look at some of the points per game kind of stuff, including those games, those numbers were very inflated. So I kind of kept that in mind throughout my coverage of the team throughout the season. But then that's when we get into the Horizon League part of it. We face Purdue Fort Wayne. We're just kind of calendar wise. We're November 30th. We face Purdue Fort Wayne, and then travel to Detroit Mercy to start things off for those early 2 slates of the Horizon League season. Lost both to Purdue Fort Wayne and Detroit Mercy. I was on the road for the Detroit Mercy game. It was a defensive struggle against the Titans. The Titans had 2 of the best rebounders in the league in their first matchup in the Metro Series. And Oakland just had a really hard time getting the offense going. That game ended 66-55 in Callahan Hall. So, and just kind of as I'm going through the games this season, I'm not going to go through every game in such detail, but for those that I was there for, and for those that I believe had an extra story, I'm going to mention it. That's kind of how we've been going through these season reviews on the GioMoShow. And a scheduled game against Xavier University was postponed, but then their next opponent was at home against Central Michigan. I was there in the stands as a fan the last time Oakland faced Central Michigan in the arena. I got a sweet hat out of it via Grizz Gang. Shout out to them, and it was a great win for the Golden Grizzlies. But for this one, I was on the coverage for it. I believe I was on play-by-play for this one. I don't think that I was on the sideline for it. I think Elizabeth Kuhn was on the sideline for that game. But it was rough. That game was ugly to watch. It was another size disparity between the 2 teams. Central Michigan had a lot of size. They had one player that was 6'5" and didn't have to jump for rebounds. Essentially, it was one of those games. And Oakland, by midway through the 3rd quarter, they were down by 20. And I'm thinking, oh my God, this game's gonna be rough. We're not gonna get a post game interview or anything. This one is gonna be so rough. But that's not how the game ended. Down by 20, the Golden Grizzlies end up coming back in this one. And I want to give you a sense of in terms of the box score. So where were we down by 20? It was at 6:30 in the third quarter. 6 minutes, 30 seconds left to go. Like I said, right in the middle of the third quarter. Down 57-37. Ugly, ugly game. But then Oakland goes on a run, and by the end of the third quarter, they ended up cutting that to 12. So they go into the fourth quarter down by 12, and then Oakland go for that quarter 26-11 in scoring. Oakland outscoring by 15 points in the last 10 minutes to get a nail-biter win against Central Michigan, 79-76, in what was an incredible, incredible game to watch, and really boosted your spirits in terms of the reporting part of it, because I was asking our silent reporter Liz Kuhn for the Oakland broadcast, thank God that happened, because that would have been such a terrible post-game interview to have to do. It's so fun when your team is down by so much and you got to do the post-game interview with the head coach. This time, the story was totally rewritten. It was totally turned around, and Oakland got the win against Central Michigan in an exciting match. So we continue down another MAC team, or a couple of MAC teams actually, against the University of Toledo and Miami, Ohio. Oakland unfortunately losing in both of those. The Miami game was really close. I was on the call for that by myself, but Oakland just wasn't able to get it done against the other two MAC teams. And then we fully dive into the Horizon League part of the season. It started off at versus Northern Kentucky, and then 3 road games: Youngstown State, Robert Morris, Purdue Fort Wayne, home against Detroit Mercy, home against the Wisconsin teams and Cleveland State, a 3-game stint, IUPUI, Wright State, Northern Kentucky, 2 home games, Youngstown State University. I know I'm just vomiting words here, but it's kind of the flow of the season kind of went that way, and we finished out throughout the rest of the season. I won't go too much into the detail, boring you guys with that. But throughout the season, it was just a bit of an offensive struggle for the Golden Grizzlies. Now, they were one of the best defensive teams in the league, as was noted in their in their season reviews. Oakland forced a league-high 20.1 turnovers per game and a league-best 5.24 turnover margin in favor of Oakland. So Oakland was great defensively, especially when it came to getting those extra possessions, but a lot of it came down to offensive struggle. And thus kind of an 8-12 record is what was resulting out of that. And in their first matchup in the Horizon League tournament, it was at home against Northern Kentucky. 89-79 was the final score there, ending the season for the Golden Grizzlies in another season ending shortly in the tournament. But that's not the only story that goes on throughout the season. So I just kind of laid it out in terms of the records and the games and the performances. But one of the bigger stories was that this was another season mostly without head coach Jeff Tungate. It was assistant coach Deanna Richard that was promoted to acting head coach throughout most of the season. Unfortunately, due to some health reasons for Jeff Tungate, wasn't able to continue throughout the season. It's not the first time it's happened, unfortunately. And Oakland, I don't want to say struggled as a result of it, but man, that's tough. That's tough to go through. For a team that all off season long was working with Jeff and was working, in getting better with him. He's a fantastic person just to talk to, and a person to be in the room. I've had many interactions with him just as part of Oakland media, and he's been nothing but respectful and kind and welcoming in that sense. And, and I'm sure that a lot of that extends to the coaching aspect as well. And to lose that presence is really tough. So you got to imagine that kind of weighed on the team throughout the season, but it doesn't mean that they stopped fighting. They continue to fight, like I talked about with that Central Michigan game and other nail biter wins. RMU was a last second buzzer beater, I believe. Oakland beat Green Bay at the last second. Green Bay was at the highest point in the Horizon League, like one of the best teams that the league has, and we beat them at home 83-81. So this team absolutely had fight and absolutely had talent to be able to, hopefully go farther in the tournament, but that's just not how it ended up going. So without Jeff Tungate for a lot of the season, we now look to this season, and I'm not officially reporting this, and this is off of memory from a tweet that I saw from Matt Dodak from the Horizon Roundtable. very, very prominent figure in Oakland in Horizon League media, noted that Jeff Tungett's contract was extended for another year. So it kind of making up for the lost season that he had. And I remember that there were clauses in the contract that had to do with amounts of wins, with it had to, somewhat of some threshold of a seed throughout the Horizon League. I don't know if there was for bonuses or for cancellation of the future contracts. I don't know anything. I don't know much about it, but I remember that being the sense of what this next season holds for Oakland women's basketball. Because Oakland throughout their history, and I'm walking on eggshells here because of how nice and respectful Jeff Tungett has been to me. But listen, I'm a sports podcaster. We cover the Oakland Golden Grizzlies, and sometimes you got to get a little bit critical at times. I don't do it much, but this time I want to kind of go down that route. So it's been a bit of a around 500 kind of record under Jeff Tungett, and it hasn't been a whole lot of postseason success in that sense, and just been kind of floating around 500. So with this contract extension and with this kind of one more year added with thresholds for numbers of wins or Horizon League seedings and things of that nature, it builds a sense that this season is big time, that this season is going to be huge for the program. Jeff Tungett's been here for 10, 11 years now, and there is some outside pressure for, higher expectations of performance. And we're seeing that from members of the Oakland media, that there's a bit of a stronger spotlight on the women's basketball team to improve, like we've seen that of Cleveland State, like we've seen that of Green Bay. So the best teams in the conference, Oakland can have that. So there's some added pressure now going into this next season to be able to do that. And this season is going to have a lot more weight as a result of that. And I hope to see it that way. I hope to see a much better performance, offensively, still holding that full court press kind of a defense, great turnover margins, as we mentioned before. Just getting that boost in offense could be such a big, big deal. So we hope that we are able to see that for next season. And we'll talk to Jeff Tungett a little bit about that on the show once we end up scheduling the interview and kind of getting him in the studio here. I want to see what this next season holds. Does it have that kind of extra significant weight from his side, from his perspective? And, how as the team roster changes through the transfer portal and through graduation go into that? And we'll talk a whole lot about that with Jeff Tungett in the coming weeks, especially before the season gets started here on the Blacktop. But some of the notable additions and changes for the Golden Grizzlies roster is we're losing a lot of talent. Markai McCormick, a one-year transfer, had part-time at Detroit Mercy, and I believe University of Charlotte, somewhere in Carolina. I can't remember, but she was one of our leading scorers, and her in her graduate year spent it at Oakland University. We don't have her back. Cam Grant, we don't have her back. Let me keep Keani Westbrook. Not coming back. Linda Van Schaik, that one's big. All of them for graduation. Those were the seniors that were celebrated on Senior Day. So we're losing a lot in that sense. But not only through graduation, but pardon me here. Look through my notes here. Not only through graduation, but also through transfer portal movement. And excuse me for stalling my speech. I'm trying. I missed somebody, unfortunately. Alexis Johnson was another one of the seniors that graduated here. Another one of the big scorers and leaders on this team. I lost the name for a second. I had to make sure that Alexis Johnson was mentioned because she was awesome throughout the season. So we're losing a big class of seniors for Oakland University. But in addition to that, transfer portal includes Kennedy Monteau as well as our camera for a second. Hold on one second here. We'll get that back here on the GioMoShow. It usually just comes back. One moment here. We'll take a break here for technical difficulties. There we are. No, just kidding. We're back. Sorry about that. But Kennedy Monteau out of Oakland University, going through the transfer portal to Arkansas State. And then the big one was Brooke Quarles-Daniels. Freshman of the year. And or what was it? Her freshman year, she was all freshman team, freshman of the year, and was all league second team. This year, she was also staying in the all league second team, but also part of the all defensive team. And she was one of the biggest scorers on the team. She was she was the point guard. That's a big cornerstone piece. And she's involved not only with assists and scoring, but rebounding as well. I saw a game where she got 19 rebounds and 21 points. Brooke Quarles-Daniels is an amazing talent out of Macomb, out of L'Anse Creuse North. No, kind of in my backyard. Making Macomb proud at all times, but losing her in the transfer portal is big time. And where did she go? And I say this in a good way. She was able to be picked up and transfer portal her way to the University of Michigan. That's big time. For Brooke Quarles-Daniels, who we had on the show last summer, coming off of her freshman of the year season. We talked to her on one of our early days in the interviews on the GioMoShow, and a very professional, very standing on business kind of person. Keep the work the most important thing. She was a huge piece, one of the biggest pieces to this team, and now she's over in the Big Ten with the University of Michigan. Congratulations to her. But as far as Oakland's concerned, that's a big loss. So it's almost a complete roster overhaul for the Golden Grizzlies coming into this now very pressure-intensive season. And we have had some movements in the transfer portal ourselves coming our way. Some new additions to the Golden Grizzlies, and I'm citing this through the Horizon Roundtable, who listed their top 25 additions to the Horizon League. It was the Horizon League women's basketball top impact transfers for 2024-2025. And listed at number 18 was Danielle Grimm, a guard coming to Oakland from the second division of college sports. Was part of the NEC All-Rookie team in the 5'7" Columbus, Ohio product. Pulled 7.5 rebounds a game for her school last season, which could be, and they cite that could be a good fill-in for the rebounding production from the guard position that Brooke Quarles-Daniels had. So Danielle Grimm, number 18 on the list for the Golden Grizzlies. Number 14 was Maddie Randall, coming out of high school in Seattle. I'm reading the article here. She was renowned for her prolific three-point shooting, both in Scholastic and club circuits. And has skills outside of the three-point shot, standing at 6 feet tall, is able to provide a lot on the defensive side, rebounding and the like. That's a big thing that Oakland struggled with at times. A lot of the three-point shooting was on, or Markiah McCormick was really on Linda Van Schaik, who led the team in three-point attempts by a mile. So to get that addition of a three-point shot is going to be great for the Golden Grizzlies. And 6 foot, adding height, because remember, we're losing Kiani Westbrook and Cam Grant. Those are some of our longer length players. So that's going to be a big addition as well. And those are the only two Golden Grizzlies that were on the list of the top 25. So I wanted to cite them here. And we'll talk more about them, of course, with Jeff Tungan when we get him on the show about how this new team is looking, because that's a huge roster overhaul. And a lot of the veterans, a lot of the leaders are gone. You got at least 7 of your leaders gone, either through graduation or the transfer portal. That's huge. So we'll see what Oakland women's basketball is able to do with that coming up next season. So that'll wrap up our quick segment on, or maybe not so quick, segment on Oakland women's basketball, taking a look at their previous season and what they got coming up here in the offseason and next season. Coming up next on the GioMoShow, we'll talk a little bit about the USPBL as well as my time at Detroit City FC, their match against Sacramento Republic FC in Hamtramck. And then we'll finish it off with a whole lot of Olympic coverage and conversation. Right here on the GioMoShow, we'll be right back